Will Texas steal California's title for the U.S. tech capital? We're going to find out more. Stay right there. I'll be right back.
You're talking about money, right?
Separate yourself widely from the pack moving forward. That's something that you would be willing to have a discussion about.
Because they didn't get it.
They
were
probably
like,
didn't get it. Yeah.
To follow up with your clients, to generate more leads.
Happy Wednesday, happy hump day. And boy, is it great to be a Texan. Today, I wanted to go over an article that I stumbled upon that essentially made me do a little digging. But before we do that, let's jump into our daily rate. All right, so here we are today, and as always, this interest rate is from the day prior to. We are going to be pricing it at a $300,000 loan amount, which is the average sales price in San Antonio and surrounding. As of right now, let's put on the screen a 5% down payment. As mentioned, purchasing in Texas, and let's go with a credit score of 760. And when I do that, it looks like our average interest rate is on a 30-year fixed 4.238. So not much movement between days. And as always, I do need to show you what the average interest rate is for the average credit score in Texas, which is going to be 676. And as you can see, it bumps up to a 4.883% for a 30-year fixed mortgage. Let's see here. As always, guys, as interest rates rise, that does not mean it's a bad time to purchase. I have to continue to tell you to reference the video about 3 days ago where I showed you the historic interest rates and where we stand as far as high and low on the chart. So keep that in mind when you are considering buying versus rent. So on today's article, I stumbled upon this and it got me digging a little bit. But before I go into that, let's just jump straight into the article itself. The title of the article is, Will Texas Steal California's Title as the U.S. Tech Capital? Rising costs in California could be the main factor in Elon Musk's decision to move Tesla's headquarters to Austin. It may also be the first sign that Silicon Valley will lose its monopoly on the big tech industry. Those are some pretty big words there. And it is basically saying that Austin will be the new Silicon Valley. And I personally have been mentioning this for about 2 years now. Since the pandemic took place, there was a couple of loans that we offered to Austin residents, and they were much higher than what we have average sales price here in San Antonio. So at that point in time, it made me do a little bit more digging and research to see if this was some type of bubble. Lo and behold, there are tons of companies such as TikTok, Facebook, now Tesla. So let's dive further into this. When Tesla announced last fall that it was moving its corporate headquarters from California to Texas, officials in Sacramento seemed more surprised than concerned. After all, Tesla was expanding its sprawling Fremont assembly plant, which already employs thousands of people. It's building a battery factory in the Northern California town of Lathrop. And real estate brokers say that the company is leasing more office space in Palo Alto, where its corporate headquarters had been located since 2009. Tesla was founded in nearby San Carlos in 2003, yet Musk's decision to move the electrical vehicle pioneer's headquarters to Texas state capital, Austin, may signal gathering clouds on the horizon of California's economic future. For the present, things are still looking bright for the state. Sacramento has been enjoying unprecedented growth in revenue thanks to the large part by high capital gain taxes paid by the super rich in Silicon Valley. And in a measure of California's present hold on tech sector, the Golden State remains far and away the leader in rising venture capital. For years, California has suffered a net out migration of people to Texas, but the losses in population tend to be at the lower end of the socioeconomic scale, and the state has grown steadily richer despite the large outflow of people. What worries some economists and other analysts in the favorable patterns may be starting to change. Tesla was one of an accelerating number of California companies, including big tech names such as Oracle and HP Enterprise, that have relocated its headquarters to Texas. I believe this is just the tip of the iceberg, said Dan Ives, who has been covering the tech sector for more than 2 decades. He said 20% of the companies he followed are considering relocating or opening a second headquarters outside of California. In the case of Tesla, which last month also started producing vehicles near Austin, and decidedly conservative views on the multi-billionaire boss may have made Texas an appealing base. Musk personally moved there in 2020. According to the credit data analyzed by Moody's Analytics, some kept their California jobs thanks to the new remote work opportunities. Others started new businesses in Texas. First-generation firms Apple, Cisco, Intel, Hewlett-Packard, and among others are still in the Bay Area and are newer tech icon Facebook, Google, and Netflix. The article goes on to state the Silicon Valley has lost its monopoly on opportunity and now has to compete, said Patrick McKinney, founder of One America Works, which connects talent with new tech communities. It has to compete with other locations to attract the talent that's going to build the future. The article goes on to say, businesses will continue to leave California just as they have for decades. But these officials contend there are good reasons why firms were born and incubated in the state, and why more will come and start new ventures and take companies public, creating more wealth and more jobs. It's true that in tech, no city or state comes close to the Bay Area in the amount of new venture capital. $120 billion last year, a figure that until 2018 was more than the rest of the country combined, which buys the Bay Area some time. Moreover, Texas universities have built up stronger reputations in engineering and other specialties prized by corporations. And Austin, whose unofficial motto is "Keep Austin Weird," demonstrates that at least some part of the states are becoming culturally compatible with California's. I've got some things to say about that, guys. There are a couple of things that this article makes me think of, which is, what does it really look like on the grand scheme of things between California and Texas? The article mentions that more of the people moving over here aren't your millionaire billionaires. It mentions a few from time to time that have decided to uproot their companies and move them here, whether that was for tax purposes, the atmosphere, political views, who knows? But what the article is alluding to is that the average consumer in those areas of California are the ones that are moving to Texas. That being the case, I wanted to compare the difference between Texas and California from a very basic economical and logical standpoint, just to give you guys a picture of what the future is going to bring. That being said, I wanted to show you guys, as you can see here, the difference between California and Texas. Let's jump into this comparison, and the first thing that I wanted to compare was the cost of living. As I look at the cost of living in California, there are a couple of things that we need to make sure to keep in mind, especially when the article the day before today had to do with rent prices rising and the cost of living rising in Texas, and essentially was leaving people homeless is what they were portraying in the article from yesterday. Let's first look at the average housing price in California versus the average housing price in Texas. Some research that I had done, it shows that the average, as of December of 2021, the average home price in Texas is $282,726, as opposed to in California, the average sales price is $745,200. The next thing that I want to look at is, if you're not coming here to purchase land, if you're not coming here to purchase property, what are you going to do and where are you going to live? So I compared the average rent in Texas to California, and it looks like the following. The average rent in Texas actually comes out to $1,388 for a 4-bedroom property. That, in my opinion, is not as substantial as what they are portraying it to be, and I believe that is pretty reasonable. $1,380 to about $1,400 and for a 4-bedroom. Now, the article from yesterday was showing that rent has risen over 30%, when in actuality, statistics are showing that it's actually only 19%, and that people were not being able to pay their rent, therefore having to be homeless. If we had to look at this from a grander scale, we look at California. In California, their average rent is sitting at $35.78 for the same comparable 4-bedroom rental. And in my opinion, it leads back to putting everything in a broader perspective to compare the two. So, next thing we want to compare is the average wage. So you would think that if the average rent in California is almost double what it is in San Antonio, or in Texas, you would think that the wages would be much higher, and that's just not the case. The average wage California is at $65,245 annually for a single family household with 2 children. And you compare that to Texas, where the average is at $50,795 for the same single earner with 2 children. So it puts it into a broader perspective. And when you look at the grand scale of everything, I took the last thing into consideration, which is the size and population of Texas versus California. And when I look at these things, I mean, it was very surprising, but at the same time, it makes perfect sense as to why we're seeing hikes in our property values, in our rent prices going up. But here's this. Texas is about 1.7 times bigger than California, just straight up in regards to size. California is approximately 403 square kilometers, whereas Texas is approximately 678,000 square kilometers, making Texas 68% larger than California. Meanwhile, the population of California is sitting at 37 million, as opposed to Texas, where it's only 12 million. So there are a greater amount of population in California than there is in Texas, meaning we have plenty of land available in Texas that just needs to be developed. So I believe over time, this housing crisis that we're going through in regards to property shortages, values going up, will eventually subside. But the good news is your risk, your step, your choice to take in purchasing a home versus renting will put you so much further ahead than anyone else that decided not to. Year over year, I have to continue to mention that year over year, we have seen at least a 6% growth in our property values. Whereas this past year, because of what's happening, and as you can see here, people are not going to stop moving to where it is more affordable. If we looked at the grand scale of things, of what average rental prices are around the United States versus average home prices around the United States, you will see that it is pretty lopsided all over the place. I foresee a world that eventually will become pretty level, but it's going to take time. There are so many other outside forces that drive these things, such as politics, income, the scenery, the atmosphere, the weather, the cost of insurance. There are so many things that play factors into this. So for someone to say that the fact that Tesla is moving to Texas will change the entire dynamic of Silicon Valley's title of being the tech capital is definitely possible. I mean, there's so much opportunity here. So if you are someone within another state that is considering moving to Texas and looking for your financing options, you want your financing options from an expert, visit LaCanteraLoans.com and one of our expert loan officers will meet with you to go over your options and provide you all of your options. You never know how far your dollar will go in a different place. And then this is not to say that California is a bad place, because as you heard within the article, they're mentioning that they're still attracting plenty of people to the state, and they will continue to create and innovate our world as they have in the past. So guys, take that for what it is. I think that it allows us to open our eyes a little bit more, to put things in perspective when we're seeing videos on YouTube and when we are reading articles that is intended for clickbait. It is intended to scare you one way or another, but I think if you are looking at things on a bigger scale, you have to put things in perspective. I used California as an extreme example in regards to housing and wages and things of that nature, but you can see a trend. And if you take those trends and you act upon them, I think you'll be better off in the long run. So this is Mark Jones, your Millennial Mortgage expert, and you guys make today count.
You were talking about money, right?
Separate yourself widely from the pack moving forward. Is that something that you would be willing to have a discussion about?
Because they didn't get it.
They
were
probably
like,
didn't
right.
get it. Yeah.
To follow up with your clients to generate more leads.